There we go. Should be starting right now. We'll wait for a few people to join in. I see we've already got 13 people already in, so that's awesome. We're going to wait a few minutes for the room to fill up. In the meantime, Emmanuel, how you doing? Catherine, is it Catherine? Am I pronouncing it correctly? Or Catherine?
Yes, Catherine will work well. Thanks.
Perfect. How are you guys doing this morning, or wherever it is for you?
Yes. Good. Good. Thanks,
All
Francois.
good.
No, 100%. I'm excited to dive into this chat. I think we can start right away. In fact, just we've already got the room filling up fairly quickly. So we'll get started. So today we are going to talk about quite a few things. We've got Jetstream on the call. We're going to do brief introductions, and we're going to discuss crafting a guest experience at scale. So we've got Emmanuel from Jetstream, we've got Catherine from Minut, and myself from Enso Connect. The quick housekeeping items for today's webinar. So there's a chat widget function on the link that you should be able to see if you click the chat button all the way to your right-hand side. This is where you can ask questions, also just share some information that you have as well on the different subjects that we're going to talk about today. And for the Q&A part, we're going to save it to the end of the webinar just so that we can keep the conversation going. But feel free to ask your questions in there whenever you'd like. We'll just address them towards the end of the webinar. And last but not least, also on the housekeeping list, we've got a poll section. So you're going to see a poll pop up from time to time with different questions. Feel free to respond to them. It's always helpful for us to know the audience that we're catering to and how we can better for the next webinars. Without anything else on the list, we're going to start off with what is a smart guest experience? Why is it important for scaling a hospitality business? That's going to be the theme today. And we're going to start off with an introduction from Emmanuel, Jetstream Hospitality Solutions. Emmanuel, take it away. Who are you?
Well, thanks for having me on this webinar. And yeah, Jetstream, I think, was an OG Enso customer, Francois, and I'll let you speak to that if you wish to speak to that later. But I'm Emmanuel. I'm the CEO of Jetstream. I am based on Vancouver Island, British Columbia. So it's 8 a.m. on Monday morning. This is starting my week, which is exciting. And what is Jetstream? Well, we started being a channel manager way back when. So we come from really a DNA of multi-channel distribution and commission-based, like we eat what we kill. And if we don't get bookings, we don't kind of make money kind of situation. So that's our core DNA. And we've evolved into becoming a PMS, but we're not your typical PMS where you buy on a SaaS way and there you go, you have your tool. Jetstream is a full service PMS, meaning it's your technology tool with a built-in call center, with a built-in revenue management team, built-in content and listing optimization team. We do all payment processing, the whole 9 yards. So we essentially do everything other than the on-site cleaning and maintenance and signing up customers. And we do it all under our partner's brand in a white label. That's Jetstream.
I love it. I love it. Amazing. Catherine, how about you? Give us a little spiel on Minut.
Yes. Hello, everyone, and thanks for having me here. So I'm Catherine, product manager at Minut, based in Sweden, in Malmö. So for me, it's sort of wrapping up my day with this lovely event. It's the pinnacle of my Monday, one can say. So Minut, we like to say that we're the co-host that helps you care for your homes, your guests, and the community. So we have a sensor that monitors and alerts you about noise, occupancy, cigarette smoke, motion, temperature, all sorts of these kind of things in your rental properties, so that you can prevent parties, you can enhance the guest experience, you can in general protect your properties. Privacy is paramount to us, so nothing is filmed or recorded with Minut. It's just a bunch of different sensors, so that your guests can feel at peace at the same time as you do. And we integrate with a lot of other platforms, including Enso Connect, of course. So we can really help you automate your workflows and keep your operations lean, so that you can focus on growing your business. So that's what I would say we are in a nutshell.
I love it. I love it. And this webinar is full circle for me because, as Emmanuel pointed out, Jetstream is actually our very first client, or very first paying client. We had a few guinea pigs at the very beginning to test things out. And then Minut was one of the first devices I had reached out to from an IoT perspective. So this is like full circle for us here at Enso. For context, Enso Connect, we are a guest experience platform for the vacation rental industry. So we basically help you digitize and monetize your guest experience. 2 different products: an AI-driven unified inbox and a boarding pass, which is a guest web app that navigates the guests through their entire journey, from verification to smart locks with check-in instructions to guidebooks, upsells, you name it. Our goal is not to reinvent the wheel, or as Manuel taught me in the early days, to boil the ocean, but to really focus on what we do best, which is monetizing and digitizing the guest experience. Without further ado, we're going to start off with our very first question around the key growth drivers for a vacation rental business. So what are those? Emmanuel, maybe you can get us started on that. Of course, there's the owner perspective, growing the inventory, but then there's also, of course, the guest perspective, growing the number of bookings. Maybe you want to touch up on that question.
Yeah, sure. I think, first of all, the absolute most important thing in order to sustainably grow a short-term or vacation rental business is to deliver exceptional hospitality and guest delight. That's the number one thing. So we're lucky in this business. I find that, we're lucky. A big chunk of our bookings come from the major OTAs. And those OTAs have very robust review systems. So really, it's a pretty cool business in the sense that you get a real-time flow of reviews back from the guests across multiple cleaning and checking and value and communications and so on and so forth. So you really get a real-time sense of how your business is doing at delivering exceptional hospitality. And if you can't consistently deliver exceptional hospitality and get great reviews, you will not sustainably grow this business. So that's kind of number one. Now, that said, I think that if you have up until maybe 1 to 5 units, you probably don't need much technology to start. You can kind of make do, one listing on Airbnb and kind of figure it out. But beyond there, as you're trying to scale your business, you're going to need tools, technology, processes, and systems. And I think, at least when I relate it to Jetstream, that falls into 2 major buckets: operations and marketing, and both of which could be an hour-long webinar and more. So I'm not going to go too much into it, but from an operations perspective, you need wonderful cleaners, whether they be in-house or outsource. Without a great cleaning partner, you're not going to get those 5-star reviews. So I'd say that's kind of the biggest partnership that we need to be successful. And then you need the software tools to coordinate those cleaners, to give them the checklist to do, because usually in our industry, every unit is unique, not like a traditional hotel. So that's kind of one segment of it. We mandate for all partners to have keyless access. We didn't used to, but now we do, because we were having too many issues with check-ins. And of course, with the right keyless access, the whole "I can't find the key under the doormat" problem goes away. And we're big fans of removing that friction. We are also big fans of noise and party monitoring technology, like Minut, for 2 reasons. Yes, it helps us nip parties in the bud, but also it gives us the ammunition we need when we go to Airbnb for damage claims or other channels or Superhog and so on. It's important to have the data. So we're big fans of that. And then finally, and this is maybe a bit less sexy to talk about, it's your data management. If you're running a small vacation rental business or a medium-sized vacation or even a large, and you go and buy a PMS or you work with a tool like us that's all inclusive, but if you're doing either way, if you're doing your own, you're going to need to hire reservation agents. And then you're probably going to hire VAs in the Philippines or wherever offshore to, for extra time zone coverage and so on. It's important that your data be centralized in an organized fashion that is easy to search. And this is data that usually sits outside of the PMS. It's things like, how does the remote for the fireplace work? Those kinds of millions of different questions that come and that are unique to a property, that has to be really structured data, not only for your own agents to find it quickly, but also for the future AI models and current AI models. It's really the foundation of what's going to build the AI models on top of. So I'd say that's on the operations side. And then on the marketing side of things, you need a good PMS and you need a good channel manager. You need multi-channel distribution. I speak to hosts who tell me that, 80 or 90% of their bookings are Airbnb. And I scratch my head. I'm wondering if they actually do distribution on any other channels. Is it like a self-fulfilling prophecy? Because at Jetstream, confidential information coming right now, of our multiple thousands of bookings a month, about 55% are Airbnb, and the rest is Vrbo, Booking, Home2Go, Holidoo, Plum Guide, Leavetown.com, which is our own channel, and our partners' direct booking websites. So that's a lot. That's 45% of bookings that are not Airbnb that are available for grabs. So we're big fans of Multi-channel distribution, as many eyeballs as possible, right? So now that that's said, we internally have an acronym that we hammer home to our team and our customers all day long. I'm just giving our secret sauce away here. We say it's CPPR: content, photos, pricing, reviews. If you succeed in those four things consistently, you're gonna crush it. So content, obviously, short to the point, bullet form, but engaging content. That's kind of almost a lesser part of the four that I just mentioned. Photos, we cannot have anything but professional photography, properly edited. They need to pop and at least to look good. And then pricing, obviously, we use dynamic yielding software. We're fans of Wheelhouse. That's our software partner on Wheelhouse. But not only do you need the tool, you need to kind of brush up on revenue management on top of the tool for the right length of stay promotions, week-long stays, 5-day stays, or early bird discounts, all the things that you do from a revenue management perspective to crush the competition. And finally, the reviews, which is full circle to what I'm talking about. If you do all these other things well, your reviews are going to shine. And you do all this well, you're going to totally crush the competition consistently.
I love it. I love it. It sounds simple on paper, but I know it's much more complex.
Yes.
Than these four buckets. That being said, one funny story about Airbnb in the early days, for example, is they weren't getting enough reservations. They had a lot of properties join the platform, and they weren't getting enough reservations. So they literally sent professional photographers to go out and take pictures. They paid for it themselves just to get to that level of quality that guests would expect. So if you imagine that everyone else has these high quality photos and you're still not doing professional photography, you are at the bottom of the list for any guest that's looking for a travel, or you're attracting the really cheap guests, at which point you're going to need 5-minute devices in that unit. All jokes aside though, how about on the Minut side of things, how do you guys see the key growth drivers for these vacation rental businesses?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a really multifaceted question, and I think I could add a few other angles here from Minut's specific experience. Then for us, the trust and security aspects of it are like really big keywords as well, because of course, as a host, you need to build trust. But it also goes both ways, right? You want to trust your guests as well, so you're going to trust your property in their hands. You want to know that it's being well kept, that there's nothing weird going on that causes trouble for the neighborhood. So it's really, I mean, we've all heard those horror stories, right, about hosts that in desperation because of previous past really negative experiences, when their place got trashed, or I don't know, the neighbors called the police, like they've resorted to putting a camera on the premises, and that's of course a huge violation of any guest's privacy, and definitely by far will not drive any positive reviews. So to prevent these things from happening, that's sort of the thing that we want to like make it into a positive cycle as opposed to a negative one, right? So I think with Minut, it's sort of both the aspect of deterring those bookings, as you already alluded to as well. So when the guest knows that the property is being monitored, then they won't book in the first place if they don't have good intentions, because they know that it will not end well for them. So you can really rest assured in that sense. And the other aspect is then, of course, that if there is something, then you will find out quickly. And we've had our customers tell us that they notice it really, like when they include the mention of Minut in their listing description, then they've noticed fewer of these problematic bookings. And then from more quantitative data, when we look at the aggregates from our own devices, and we can see that when it comes to, for instance, noise monitoring, then it's about 90% of the incidents that are resolved within just 20 minutes, and that's like way before they develop into something super serious, or the neighbors have time to complain. So it really builds that trust in that sense. I think the sort of neighborhood piece aspect is also what we really want to highlight here, because I mean everyone wants to have a good time at their holiday, right? So it's most of the time not that the guest wants to go and cause trouble, they just don't realize that now it's getting a little bit too loud. So it's sort of like peace of mind for the guest as well, when they know that, like, hey, it won't be like, okay, the first thing that happens is that police shows up on your doorstep. They also know that they will get some sort of more pleasant experience there as well. So you can really, again, but looking back to the guest experience, right? Like something that could be really negative, you can actually take it and turn it around into something really positive, and like work together with the guests, resolve the situation, which they, you know, never maybe meant to trigger in the first place. They just didn't realize, and I think, yeah, for the neighborhood as well, to sort of get that feeling of security as well, that there won't be a racket, they will get their good night's sleep, there won't be any trouble. So that whole communities can sort of put their trust in SDR as well, and sort of help boost that growth as well for your business, because your community is not trying to sort of make you go away and leave the area and not have your rental in their building or in their neighborhood.
100%. No, I think, I mean, looking at these two answers specific to the question of, you know, what are these key growth drivers? We look at it from, can you remind me, Emmanuel, it was
CPPR, content, pricing, photos, reviews.
Content, pricing, photos, reviews. And then trust around, you know, post booking. What does that trust look like to craft a better guest experience? Are some of the key verticals around growth. I think what's interesting as well, and I'm going to touch up on one of the points. I know this is a bit off script, but just know that any webinar with me is always off script.
Right.
Is what you said about centralizing data. And I think this is something that when you run a business, when you're CEO of a business, whatever your title is, when it's your business and you have to constantly think months ahead, what's the next problem? What's the next challenge we're going to face? This is a really important piece that allows you to solve these future problems quicker, which is centralizing and cleaning up the data. I mean, I speak to operators on a daily basis, some of which will tell me that their information sits on a PDF. And I'm like, I can't even extract that information. It's on a PDF. It's going to be way more difficult to get that data and use it for whatever that is. So centralizing the information. Could you touch up a bit more on that, Emmanuel, around what you guys have done to centralize that data?
Yeah, what we've done and what we're doing is two different things. So our PMS is just like it's our own software with our own software team. So it's like every other PMS in the world. It's a constant work in progress. So we have, you know, built-in, baked-in fields like amenities and stuff, which are obviously just like any PMS. We do have a smaller content section within it where our guest-facing agents can add information in, but it's not big enough. So what we've done in the past is we've used Notion as a third-party tool for various reasons in business, big fans, but that's kind of where we've been adding a lot more property data, which works because it's highly searchable and it's great. But what we're, you know, now this is back to the CEO looking in the future. So this is me just kind of future casting here, but this is why we do these webinars, right? It's to share information kind of about where this is all heading. We're realizing that having our data in a third-party tool, while okay for our humans to manage, is not really what we want for the business moving forward. So we're going to be building a lot more, I guess, just raw data capability, highly searchable within our own tool, which then makes it highly API-able to third-party tools for the AI chatbots and so on. To Ben Miller's question on the chat, you know, is there a tool that host should use to manage his content? Right now, Ben, I'm using Notion. In the near term, we're going to be using our own PMS as the data source. But I know that a lot of the tools like Enso AI, don't you guys ingest?
Yeah.
Everything. Can't you even ingest PDFs and all this stuff?
Now we're working towards these things, but we don't necessarily centralize it because we realize that a lot of operators centralize it around Notion, their PMS, and so on. So we like to bring that data internally for sure, wherever the source comes from. But you know, every operator uses a different tool to center their knowledge base. I mean, I've seen from Google Docs to Notion to high table, ClickUp, you name it, and it's always slightly different than the PMS, so it becomes a bit more complex.
What I can say is, you know, what I think makes sense is not necessarily what the guest-facing team 24/7 all over the world likes to do. Yeah. So it's been a bit of a learning experience to what makes sense to me is not necessarily what works for their workflow. So really try to build it, any business operator out there, build it around what your team wants with an eye to a centralized database in the future.
100%.
I think.
100%. I like the idea of having that database be separate from systems, and it sounds counterintuitive being Enso Connect, one of the platforms that's supposed to bring on as much of this data as possible, but it actually makes sense sometimes to create a third-party entity in a way like Hightable or ClickUp or Notion, where that data is stored, because then you can plug it into anything else that you want, right? So it creates that sort of, you control the center knowledge base, you control the brain of the information in your business, and then you decide where the different nodes go to, whether it's your PMS, your channel manager, your smart devices, your guest experience platform, you name it. And back to that item around data, I think there's a good segue as well around trust, because part of the information that you receive from whether it's your devices, your PMS, or all of this information that you have, gives you confidence on the guest experience that you're providing, on the quality of that experience, but also what's going to drive trouble bookings, what's going to drive great reviews, and so on. I'm sure there's a correlation between bad guests, the ones that trash the place, and bad reviews. They usually don't leave a great review after they've trashed the place. So being proactive about this will allow you to probably solve the CPPR. I'm going to use that from now on.
Yeah.
The secret has been shared, Emmanuel.
Yes. I know. I need royalties on this.
I know, right?
You know, but like everything, ideas are easy. Execution is
Amen.
eats ideas for breakfast every day. But you know, Catherine, I agree with what you're saying also about prevention, whether it be with the Minut or with auto host screening or any type of guest screening tool. Listing that on the listing means the bad actors are going to read that and go, you know, I'm just going to go book something else. So that's like probably 50% of prevention is just listing what you're about to do. Yeah.
And it's proactively thinking about those kinds of scaling risk, right? When you start with one property, you're like, oh, I don't need all of this. It's fine. I'll deal with it myself. And then you have 2 and 3, and all you need is that one bad guest to then make you rethink. But imagine scaling this to 50. Do you really have time for 50 guests in that, 50 different properties to go in and ask and to make sure that they're not making too much noise, and the impact it's going to have on what you mentioned, Catherine, about, the local community. I was just in Australia for a conference, Astra, and the sense of community in Australia when it comes to vacation rentals is phenomenal. But what was very, not surprising, unfortunately, but sad to see is the increase of regulations in certain areas. And I feel like preventative technology, whether it's AutoHost, whether it's Minut, anything that allows you to know and prevent these kinds of bad actors will help not just for your business, but for all vacation rental businesses in the area. I mean, what would happen if tomorrow there's regulation that comes out that says you have a 60-day minimum? You're out of business tomorrow. You wouldn't be able to keep the business afloat. So bringing that proactiveness and that trust, I think, is a big part that is oftentimes underlooked, especially when you're just getting started. But I mean, what is it? 60% of vacation rental hosts have less than 5 units, if I'm not mistaken. So it's, you're a part of this proactive trust building and professional building industry, if you will. The next question, which I'll pass on to Catherine first, actually, around crafting exceptional guest experience using technology. So looking at every single part of the booking experience, but mainly once the guest has booked, how do you look at that from a trust and security perspective? How do you make sure that you have this exceptional guest experience, but you're using preventative technology? Could you share a bit more about that?
Yes, absolutely. So a few things. So one, I think it's really, again, about like letting the customers know, letting the guests know that you're using something like Minut, that you're using Minut. So yeah, one aspect is, of course, as we mentioned many times already, the deterral of the problematic bookings, but it's also it's the right thing to do. And I mean, there's this general increasing mistrust in the society towards technology as everyone freaks out about AI and how it takes over the world and so on and so forth. So the least we can do is just talk about what it really is, what it does, what it doesn't do, to like take the edge off. Like it's not some sort of mystical big brother. Like we can be very clear about what this piece of technology does and what it doesn't do. So your guests are aware, and again, like building that trust and that relationship with them. And it also, I mean, in the experience of our customers, it gives the chance to sort of get the guest on your side as well. Like many times we've heard that when the host actually walks the guest through, like what is that thing in the ceiling? What is that little device? the guest is like pretty much on board with that. They are sort of, oh yeah, that makes total sense. I totally understand why you have this. I totally understand how that also improves my experience, how it builds or helps build the trust in general. So yeah, they really just yeah, it makes them feel more confident as well about their stay, and the transparency really is super helpful in these situations.
Yeah.
Then I think yeah.
No, I was just going to add, I think it also shows the professional nature of a business, right? Where it's not just Bob hosting a property, but it's a professional business. You have a brand, you have a system in place to prevent bad actors, and it showcases, you know, Jetstream or whatever the name of the business is that's managing those properties. It puts them sort of at a professional standard that other hosts or other vacation rental managers won't appear like. And I think that has a greater impact, not just on trust, but also future bookings like direct bookings and just the brand awareness of that property manager. But keep going, Katrin. Pardon me for interrupting.
Yeah, no. That's a very, very good point. And I mean, I think even with the smaller, like hosts that only have like one property or up to 5 properties, it's still, like, as you said, like it's adding this professional touch, and it also, I think in some sense, when you are a smaller host, and then every property is of course a bigger part of your portfolio and the bigger part of that revenue that you wanted to get, and you sort of factored in and building your business and your livelihood on. So it's in that sense like equally important to both small and big portfolios that you still have this protection aspect, and you know that you don't find your property trashed the next morning.
100%.
And I mean, yeah, I think the sort of the second aspect that I would bring out is, again, set up as many automations as you can. And I mean, definitely there's a good time for different tech to be brought in depending on your size and so on. I think, again, when it comes to Minut, then it's not too early to start when you're just going with your first property either. Like the payoff can be just super massive. But it's also not only of course the risk of getting the property destroyed or damaged or the neighborhood massively disturbed, but it's also just the automation of the tasks, right? I mean, you want to sort of be able to standardize a few of those situations and solving them that might come up more often, and maybe like guests getting loud could be one of them. But not the only one by far. And then you can sort of spare yourself the time to like spot those opportunities which are more non-standard, and they don't need to be negative ones. They can be also positive ones. And you put your time into those. Like could be like spending 5 more minutes chatting with that guest, where you like spot this opportunity to give them some sort of information that's, you know, relevant to them, but not included in your general welcome package for whatever reason. So that would be also one reason to bring in tech fairly early, I would say. Again, like driving this really exceptional guest experience.
100%.
And then as the third thing, I would maybe also really reinforce this data aspect. So it's different types of data, right? And what Minut does is add you that perspective of data from the ground, data from the property. So yeah, you can get a few different things from the sensor that really let you customize and personalize the guest experience. So it could be like you monitor the temperature so that you know that your guests have a comfortable stay, and at the same time sort of keep an eye on your heating or cooling related bills to not shoot through the roof. Or you can monitor the motion and actually know when the guest has arrived and send your welcome messages based on that, as opposed to just, you know, sending them at the check-in time. Or yeah, even with, again, like the noise resolution flow, that you can really customize it and build it in a way that turns something that could be really negative into something really positive. And again, like driving those positive experiences, the positive reviews, and ultimately your revenue and sort of this, I've got you, you've got me, we've got this together kind of collaboration with the guest.
100%. I want to touch up on one key thing that you said specific for Emmanuel, which is standardizing a lot of things as you scale. This is, I think, one of the challenges I see with a lot of businesses. Emmanuel, how does standardizing your operations help with guest experience? Like, what does that mean for you and for Jetstream?
Oh boy. That's a big question.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Just like every scaling business, we suffer from our own process of needing to standardize to continue delivering quality at scale. So this is, I envy the founder who can pre-think of the totally standardized business that they can scale to $10 billion from day one. So I'd say this is a good question because we're in the process of that ourselves, as I alluded to, even from a data architecture perspective for some reasons, in some cases. So yeah, I think it's definitely everything we're seeing within our own business now, and I'm sure I'm not going to be the only one saying this on this webinar out there, is that a lot of our data sits in different silos, formatted differently, and it's all there. The problem is those who are on the front lines, they don't have the time necessarily when they're dealing with 20 inquiries at the same time to find it all and answer correctly. So standardizing data source and then standardizing processes is what, in my opinion, will lead to consistent 5-star reviews.
Yeah.
Which is a continuous work in progress. Why I say sharing CPPR is not a problem. It's executing on it consistently. That's the hard thing.
Cool. Yeah. One of the things I've seen with standardizing processes that really help when trying to grow is to drive that process with a key KPI. So what I often see from other founders, and I've made this mistakes myself, is like you have this idea in mind of how the process should be, and you start making it really complicated with different branches and different ways of, and then it breaks. And it breaks the whole system, and the whole system is kind of not working for the next foreseeable future until you go through this exercise again and again and again. And what I've noticed works fairly well in and obviously I'm on the tech side of things, but you guys are as well, since you've built a lot of your technology internally, is just associating one North Star KPI to the team to build that process and system. So if it's, for example, getting better reviews, looking at, okay, why are we getting bad reviews in the first place? Well, we're getting bad reviews because the kitchen is always dirty. Well, let's make sure that we always clean up the kitchen. Or actually, most of the bad reviews we're getting are from guests that we don't really want in the first place. Hey, you know what? Let's put a Minut device and make sure we prevent these kinds of guests. Or let's even prevent them before they even show up to the property with auto host, or whatever those different verticals are. And look at one KPI, whether it's under the bucket of CPPR or in general for your business, revenue, profitability, et cetera. I found that building systems around one North Star metric sometimes works best, just because there are so many systems to build. Would you agree with that? Is that something?
I completely agree. Yeah. I think it's good to have a North Star for the business in general, just one big North Star. And then, and for us, I think it's the review scores. At the end of the day, the review scores, because again, it's not just one number, it's multiple.
Yeah.
That is the ultimate output of everything in the business.
Yeah.
If you're delivering 5 stars time after time after time, you're doing something really good, and then you can just work at scaling it. If you're not, well, then there's something to fix along the way, because that is it. And lucky, I started by saying we're lucky in this business because we get that feedback at every single booking, or just about, which is pretty great. A lot of my business friends don't have that kind of instant feedback loop in their business.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Well, I mean, this comes from, would you say, what are some of the key drivers? Maybe let's touch up on that. What are the key drivers for those 5-star reviews?
Yeah, I'd say, well, first of all, onboarding. Now everybody's different. We have onboarding of property managers and homeowners and investors. But a proper onboarding process is probably 60 to 70% of it, and that's from my end. But if you take yourself as the person who's being onboarded by a PMS or by Jetstream and so on, that includes finding the right cleaners, connecting them appropriately, setting the right expectations, having the right photography, describing the property properly, and setting correct expectations, not too much expectation, which then leads to bad value score, as an example, right? All these elements of onboarding, whether it's you're onboarding yourself onto some other PMS or as with Jetstream or any other company, that sets the foundation for success. So I'd say onboarding it's like everything essentially right off the bat. And then obviously having a good cleaning partner, which is a lot easier said than done right now with the cost of cleaning and how scarce those resources are. And then check-ins. We used to have hard, and I say hard, not ideal check-in review scores before we mandated keyless access. And even then, I'm going to give you an example of what we're now implementing, because I've had that when I've been a guest and I've enjoyed it, and we haven't been doing this. If you show up at a place, even if it has keyless access, and it's, we got this property manager partner in England, beautiful places, it's pitch dark over there at night. You've been driving for 3 hours, you got two screaming kids in the back, you get out of your car, it's pissing rain, you're trying to find your thing, you go, and then you show up and there's keyless, and now you're already pretty frazzled. And then, sometimes you got to press the check mark. Sometimes after the code, you got to press a pound. Sometimes you got to press a pound before the code and then the star, all this stuff. So as an example, we're starting to implement now is we're doing a photo journey, literally from the moment I step out of my car, step by step, to how I get into the house, those kinds of things. That goes a very long way to making that a different experience.
I'm very biased on that just because I know how you're doing it. And so I love to hear it, but it's very much that step-by-step. It's funny you mentioned the night experience. That's something I wanted to implement, which was like night step-by-step check-in instructions versus day step-by-step check-in instructions. Because I had the exact same experience you just described staying in a property in Colombia, where at day and at night, two completely different places. Same place, but two completely different places. And so the check-in experience feels very different and a bit more challenging. And I think as guest expectations start to rise and people have been asking for more, they're paying more, they're expecting more, they feel like it's a hotel, even though it's a vacation rental, you have to meet those kinds of standards when you're operating digitally. I mean, ultimately what I think the vacation rental is a bunch of fragmented hotels with no in-person staff. So having the right technology in place, if you don't have a concierge downstairs with neighbors next door complaining, about too much noise, and then you call concierge downstairs and they go knocking on your room saying, please keep it down, to, showing up to a property and you just give your ID and they check you in and give you a card. All of that is disappearing. So now it's just, you have to do this by yourself as a guest and pay more. So I think this is where finding the right partners and technology to help with maintaining the human touch in your guest experience while creating that digital experience is key. What is that? I know we still have quite a bit of time here. I just want to touch up on human touch. This is something I was presenting a few days ago. What does the human touch look like when you go this far in digital? What is left for the human touch? And this is for both of you to answer. This is a very tricky question, I think, but and not on the list again. Sorry.
No, I really think there's plenty left, and that it's exactly this. Like, there's so much to do. Everyone's so busy. So if you find yourself spending your sort of human touch time on things that could be automated, doing the same thing over and over again, writing the same message over and over again, like the standard stuff, you never get the capacity to go above and beyond, right? Like you literally have no time for that. So in that sense, that's how I think tech is really an enabler for the human touch rather than something that eliminates it. So yeah, that's I think.
Automate the mundane so you can deliver the exceptional. That's what I always like to say. What about that, Manuel?
100%. Couldn't agree with that more. I mean, the example that I'm going to tell about right now is High Street Townhouse, which is a project that's common to our three companies. We now power a 19-unit apart hotel in Manchester, right downtown. Previous to our Jetstream kind of powering the thing, it was managed by kind of maybe an old school management company that went out of business. And the manager on site is the same one, spanning the old company and us now. So it's actually quite a unique situation. And previously, she did all the mundane. Guests would show up, she would take credit cards, driver's license, all this insanity. And now Jetstream's powering it, and we have Minut units and Enso boarding pass and Enso connected access keyless to the building, both the front door and so on. And so her name's Allison. She's a rock star. And Allison now just focuses on hospitality. She doesn't have to say, hey, send me this, give me this, give me that. It's just like, how can I make your stay better? And so we're crushing it. Absolutely, like 95% occupancy in September, fantastic reviews. And everybody's saying Allison's so great. Yeah, Allison's great because she's not asking for your driver's license when you come in. Right?
I love it. And you know what? It drives, and this is a whole different subject. I'm sure we'll have to have another webinar just on these ones, but it drives the ability to create new revenue streams. I think that's the other thing is, like, you can focus on upsells. You can focus on, what that experience is. If you look at what the budget is for a guest staying at a property, it's usually not more than 25-30% of their entire holiday stay. They're going to spend more of their cash on going out and having a good time than they are on just staying in the property. So I think there's also that sort of freeing up the human time so that you can focus on the additional services and tap into that additional revenue, that additional budget. Every business has an upsell except the vacation rental industry, where it's just rooms, nights, and bookings. And it's like, wait, but it's a guest staying in a property. Like, what else can you provide to them? So really excited to hear the success around High Street Townhouse. I mean, it definitely is an awesome project and an awesome building. I know quite a few people were fighting for it from the initial days, and Jetstream was the one selected to manage that property and do it right. So that's amazing. One last question, and then we're going to open it up for what's it called, questions. And I know we've already seen quite a few in there, so don't worry, we will get to your questions very soon. How do you envision technology shaping the future of the hospitality industry? And I think we'll have to have a webinar specifically on data management, because I think that's one where like it's still very gray in this industry.
Yes.
And I think no one really knows how to do it, but I've seen certain people do it well. It might not be the way to do it, but it's working well for them. So where do you see this tech landscape go, and how does that shape your hospitality business?
Who would you like to go first?
Katrin, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I mean, again, a big question. I think besides yeah, exactly. I think it is really making use of more of the data for sort of, again, looping back to the human touch. Like you can have some things sort of pinpointed about the customer so that you can really tailor that experience. I think that's sort of what I see. What we at Minut are doing more and more. We have a lot of data, a lot of aggregated data. There's a lot of smartness to add to it still. So it's a journey for sure. But like how to surface those insights that on the one hand, yeah, okay, it's all the automation and so on. But on the other hand, like those opportunities to spot, like, okay, here is something different, here is something out of the ordinary. How can I make use of this? How can I sort of interact with that specific guest to elevate that experience again? So I think that's like one of the big themes that I think in general and also for us at Minut for sure.
100%. How about yourself, Emmanuel? How would you answer that question?
Oh, I don't know how humans will travel in the future. Well, no, sorry, let me say. I think we've all been burned, those of us in the industry for a while, about making predictions of how things will happen in the future. I mean, during COVID, it was like there will never be an end to remote work and digital nomads, and it's, forever and ever and ever. And so I'm going to be careful about predicting how people will travel. But what I do know is people will continue traveling, and they will seek unique experiences, and they will want funky, cool places that have great reviews. Okay, that's not going to change, and it's going to increase with human population and and all the right things. So as an operator, how I think technology is going to change, and this is probably not groundbreaking thinking, but AI is definitely a big disruption in lots of parts, or not disruption, enhancer maybe, but certainly will change the landscape of what's possible. So I envision a future one day where, and this is not in a year or two, but it's in, I don't know how many years, I'm not going to predict that, but whatever the number is, I predict a day where you're going to be buying like an AI-powered short-term rental manager. Obviously, the AI won't clean the toilets, but it's going to do a lot of the work as a comprehensive, self-driving, self-learning, self-adjusting software tool, which will mean the cost of short-term rental management will go down, which will mean it'll be more accessible, which means, this is my predictions, which will mean you'll have more and more people that have an interest in short-term rentals who will probably be able to get into the game, either as an investor or as a manager, because the tools will just be even that much easier to run. And I think we're already seeing that start to happen, even just in our own business. We power real estate agents and brokerages and cleaning companies and home service companies. These are people that historically never would have done short-term rentals. At least some of them wouldn't have. And now all of a sudden they're dabbling in it because, gosh, the tech is just working now. And that wasn't the case 10 years ago.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I don't know when the timeline for that prediction is. Let's hope like 4 months, Q2, Emmanuel, just so that we can have a target for it.
Well, I need a bit more time to build to it. So I'd like, a few more years than that.
100%. No, I think that you guys have the right mindset in that technology is here to assist you in your day-to-day operations. It's not just something that you need to have. And following that trend, it's more about, as I pointed out earlier on, like automate the mundane so you can personalize the exceptional, or so you can really create that human touch. I think I agree with your view, Emmanuel, although I think there's always going to be a human factor to hospitality. I think it's just where that human factor is going to be placed. As you pointed out, the cleaning side of things isn't necessarily going to be automated with AI. I think we're going to see more property managers become digital concierge businesses, more so than just managing properties. I think that aspect is going to change very quickly over the next year or two.
Let me be clear. When I'm saying that your AI is going to be running the thing, even in our partnerships, there's always, it's the customer. My customers are the ones who are ultimately making the guest stay at the end of the day exceptional, even though they may not go visit, and they're the ones who take care of the homeowners and the investors. So that's never going away. It's just the tools behind them are going to get cheaper, better, faster, better self-learning.
100%. I think you even pointed this out earlier on in our discussion around revenue management, right? You still need people with the tools. It's people oftentimes get revenue management and think, well, all my problems are going to go away. They get Minut and they think, oh, no more guests are going to have a party. Like all the technology out there is the tools for you to then do something about it. It's providing you that information. It's giving you that data in a structured way where you can see it and you can scale with it. Now it's what you do with that data that I think is going to have an impact on your scalability. I love this. I love this conversation. I think we're going to need to do like 2, 3, or 5 more webinars on these topics. I really appreciate both of you joining us today. Let's go through a few of these questions. I see we've got quite a few. We're going to start off with one of them. Ben's very first question, just kind of reiterate on that, which was around, is Enso where all the customer-facing property nuances are managed? What about internal property details? Is there a tool that hosts should use to manage this content for their internal teams and vendors? So on Enso Connect, we do manage a lot of content around guests, whether it's your guidebooks, your upsells, and so on. We're not necessarily your centered tool for all of this. We usually pull it from your PMS and pull it from different sources. Emmanuel, do you want to touch up a bit more on Notion and other systems and the way to think about structuring that data?
Yeah, like I think right now, most companies out there are doing what we're doing and what you mentioned, Francois. Some people are using Google Docs on the side. We use Notion for various reasons, but in this particular reason, we use it for that.
On Notion.
Yeah, and we don't have enough of the data in our own TMS database, in our own AWS server databases. And we see that as a tech company as not ideal moving forward. And also it's in spite of what I want and this and that, my guest facing team is not liking to use Enso on the side, which to me is like, well, why not? It's just another tab on your browser, but it's just not part of their workflow. They want to be using one tool. And I don't know what that tool is. I don't even know if other tools, other PMSs have that tool. All I know is we're heading towards that. But for now, we use Notion.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, centralizing it for your team is obvious. I always say there's a big difference between centralizing all of your systems in one and centralizing the primary system that one team member uses. I think there's a big difference in that. A lot of people tend to mix the two, thinking that you just need one tool to govern everything. I personally fully disagray with that. You're not going to have your GitHub and your HubSpot in the same place. Like your coders are going to build their code in the same place that your sales team sells. If there's a tool out there like that, do let me know. That could sound interesting. But it's I agree. It's centralizing the information that one specific team member needs in one place, and that oftentimes makes things fairly complex. I mean, Minut, I know you guys are more on the software side. Do you guys use a specific tool as well to center the information for all of your teams?
Well, Notion, but definitely like every team still has their own tools as well. And it's exactly what you said, like more making the workflow for a specific team member to sort of make sense and be really easily operable.
100%. So CPPR, like CPR, is life-saving for vacation rentals.
That's the joke of the webinar, Patricia.
I love it. Well, thank you, Patricia. We've got a new client of Minut that's just about to get started. The Minut website portal is really easy to use, and the customization or escalation path is awesome. So that's fantastic. Another question is, do different elements like Minut and Enso work together? Do you need an API? We actually do. So we partner with Minut. It's username and password to log in and connect your Minut account, then just associate the properties with the relevant device. again, I think what you're going to see in this industry more and more and more is interconnections between all of the different tools and systems. It's always been the PMS, and the PMS has its marketplace, and it's one way, and that's it. You can use third-party tools for things that the PMS hasn't built yet or at all. Now we're starting to see more and more of these interconnections between different third-party vendors like Enso and AutoHost, Minut. I'm sure Minut has connections to other systems as well. So you're going to see more of that data being shared across tools. But the short answer is yes, we integrate with Minut. We've got someone who wants to get a contact, Sergio. Momentum Capital, that rings a bell. And yes, because you are actually launching Enso this week, so very exciting as well. Another question I wanted to add on that point of how do you maintain this human touch while moving all digital? How do you keep this warm and belonging spirit that people expect when you're providing a home away from home from them? So this is one I have a lot of things to say around that, but I'll let you guys start. Being a digital guest experience platform, I'm obviously pushing for one side, but I don't think it's one side or the other. Katrin, maybe you want to start us off on this one, and then we'll move to Emmanuel.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I think I feel like I'm repeating myself a little bit, but I do think it's sort of scaling to spot the opportunities, right? Or like where can you add the extra that you don't add the same way to all guests, and like focus on those parts while you let the technology take care of the other parts. I think that's sort of because so many things are standard by now, right? The things that the guests expect and assume, and then also there has been a trend, I guess, in exactly like I don't want to see the house, I don't want to meet anyone, I want to just go and check into my room and be there in peace. And there's like probably a big share of guests that like it like that, but there's another big share that actually miss that extra, that like, okay, what if I was reached out to about something different than just my check-in, or like things like that I think we have a huge space for sort of bringing back a little bit like maybe old-fashioned, but more, I would say, renaissance almost of the personal interaction that guests and hosts back in the old days used to have, when there wasn't so much automation and it really was like always face to face. So I mean, you of course would need to hand them the keys and register the driver's license, or I mean back in the day maybe not that either, but you at the same time also you got to chatting about something else. And now you're sort of, when you automate, you miss a little bit of that, but you discover other things maybe from the data that you get, and like how can we capitalize on that? I think that's the sort of nuance here that I would still enforce and promote, how to bring the human touch and the home away from home.
That makes sense. How about yourself, Emmanuel? How would you add to that question?
Yeah, I think, I agree with all of it. The tools are there to enhance the human touch, and also, and just taking examples of my own customers, 95 to 97% of bookings are completely flawless, in the sense that the guest shows up, everything is good, they leave, they're very happy, they leave a great review. And in those cases, those guests, my most successful partners, they'll put local soap from a local artisan, they'll do like the local touches, so that the guest feels like, oh wow, this is a nice touch, I feel this is a personalized service, and they're happy. And then, but when there is a problem, then the tools, the technology, whether Minut and Jetstream, help the local partner go and address it in person, and therefore they are getting the personalized service.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be lost, this personalized service. We're not industrializing short-term rentals. We're just providing the tools for people to focus on hospitality instead of the mundane, like you say.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think the way I sort of diagnose this question is data, then personalized services or human touch, and then systems. And what I mean by that is, first you need to understand who you're greeting and who this person is, in order for you to provide this home away from home experience. And to do this with one or two properties is not easy, but it's more manageable for a single property manager or one person. But to do this with 100, 1,000 or 10,000 units, which sounds absurd, but if you have ambitious goals like Jetstream has, then you need to find ways to create those systems. So I think the first step is collecting all of that data so you can build avatars of the types of people that are staying in your properties, so that you can then figure out what is the baseline automation that I need to create to satisfy guests, to hit an NPS score, if you will, that is not necessarily a promoter, but definitely not a demoter. They're just going to be, this is what I expect, and I got what I expected, I paid for it, and that's it. And then once you have that information and you can provide that data in a structured way for your team, you can then start being proactive and providing that home away from home. And then from there, close the loop and find a way to create a system from it over and over and over again. On paper, sounds easy. Of course, every vacation rental business is different. So what that data is, what that human touch looks like, and what that system looks like after is going to be slightly different. One thing to add to it is, Emmanuel, have you seen any differences from a human touch perspective going keyless?
No. I mean, in the sense that, well, prior to keyless, it's not like our partners would meet the guests. I mean, some of them do, but for the most part, it was just the keys hidden here, left, right, center, under the thing, So no, it's been positive because it's just more seamless. I mean, when I'm traveling, I'm just trying to get into the unit. I'm tired. I've been traveling. I don't need to meet somebody. In fact, for me personally, it'd be just like, oh my God, I got to meet somebody on top of this. I mean, it's a nice touch if somebody shows up and it's like, hey, I'm here and this is me and here's your keyless. I mean, I guess that'd be pretty cool. But I see no problem with just keyless as is, and we've never had any complaints or any loss of quality because of that.
Yeah, no, I think that's where we're going to see things go. And I think, if anything, the in-person concierge will be after the check-in and the guest is taking a hot shower and is feeling rested. And right when they land, I doubt that they want to have after a 22.5-hour flight to Sydney, I can assure you, I did not really want to speak to a host or property manager about the food and everything. I just wanted to take a shower and go to bed. Awesome. We've got a few last questions, and then we're going to wrap things up. One of the last questions is, how does upselling help with Enso to enhance the guest experience in terms of where to go, what to do? So part of what we do is obviously upsells, where you can connect basic things like early check-in, late checkout, mid-stay cleaning. So what I like to call the operational upsells. And then you've got, of course, the value add ones, which are going to be more around experiences. So you can connect with platforms like Mount, Hostco, Viator, any other system out there that you basically want to create memorable experiences from and generate revenue from them as well. So happy to share more about that. We're going to close things off. Actually, one last question for Katrin, and then we'll close things off, promise. You've mentioned that we can turn the negative into positive if a guest has experienced any inconvenience during their stay. Let's say we have resolved the issue, but the guest is still not happy because he's had a bad experience. How do we turn things around using these tools?
Mm-hmm. That's a really great question. And I mean, I guess with that, the guest that's staying there right now, and they had a bad experience, then you're like running against time a little bit. Like, what can you save? How long is their stay still supposed to be? But again, looping back to if you use the tech that helps you sort of spot things that you necessarily wouldn't see, like with Minut giving you insights from the property, it might be something really small that you can just, I don't know, you spot that the temperature is maybe to the low side. You can try to, make a caring chest by checking, is that good? Can we adjust that? Like, spot some of those things maybe that might still let the guest know and feel that even though there was some experience that was negative, that as like overall, and you still really care about making their stay great. And I think then there's also this learning from those experiences, and what can you do in your automations and your workflows for the next time to just spot things earlier. I don't know, when it comes to the noise resolution case, for instance, which is could be very negative, but what if instead of you just lower the thresholds, you introduce a step that super gently lets the guest know when it's starting to get loud, so that they don't need to feel like, okay, I did something wrong just yet. You just kind of customize it to start a little bit further ahead and prevent rather than let the incident happen. So I think that's how it can potentially help.
I love it. Being proactive is the key to it. One of the things we do on that front is analyze the conversation and give you a sentiment rating of each guest so that you can know before they leave that bad review if they're unhappy, and address it more proactively than a guest that's happy and they're checking in 3 months and it's like, we can handle that later. So agreed on the proactiveness of things. We're going to wrap things up. Thank you so much, Emmanuel and Katrin, for your time. So one last thing is, where can we find you? I see, Emmanuel, you've shared your email and you're going to be at VRMA. I will be there as well. I didn't answer your message about it, but I will see you next week at VRMA. Is Minut going to be at VRMA as well?
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, we will gladly meet with everyone.
Is it going to be you? Is it going to be someone else?
It's not going to be me, but it's going to be a bunch of my awesome teammates. So they will reach out to everyone that has shown interest here, and then you'll definitely find us there as well.
Fantastic. Well, feel free to we've recorded this webinar, so we're going to do a little post-show wrap-up where we'll share contact information of Minut and Jetstream if you want to learn more about these businesses, as well as share the recording with any one of your audiences, or just go through it again because you were on your drive to work and couldn't hear everything in detail. So really excited to see you guys next week, and we'll wrap it up from here. But thank you so much for having us.
Thanks so much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.